There is a photograph of you that you will never remember. You are maybe 2 years old in it. Someone is holding you up toward the camera, and you are laughing at something just outside the frame. You have looked at that picture. You felt nothing. No memory, no echo, just a small stranger wearing your face. But the real reason that child is a stranger is far stranger than a lost photograph. Because that child was not asleep. That child was awake, alert, and learning faster than you will ever learn again in your life. That child was absorbing an entire language from scratch. That child knew the smell of one specific blanket, the exact sound of a parent's footsteps on the floor, the private geography of a living room. And then, somewhere around your third or fourth birthday, almost all of it was erased. Try it right now. Reach back as far as you can go. What is the very first thing you actually remember? For most people, the answer surfaces somewhere around age 3.5. A flash of a birthday candle, a dog, a scraped knee on a staircase. Before that line, there is nothing. Not darkness, not blur, just absence. As if your life began in the middle of a sentence already in progress. This blank stretch has a name. Scientists call it infantile amnesia. The term is more than a century old. Sigmund Freud reached for it back in 1899, unsettled by a strange contradiction. The years he believed shaped a person most deeply were the earliest ones. And yet, those years left almost no trace in the adult mind. Freud assumed the memories were buried on purpose, repressed, hidden away because they were too raw to keep. He turned out to be wrong about the reason, but he was right about the whole. Something enormous goes missing from every human life, and almost no one ever notices it is gone. That is the part worth sitting with. The forgetting is universal. Every single adult you have ever spoken to is missing the exact same chapter. The first 2 or 3 years of human life, the most explosive period of learning a brain will ever undergo, leave behind almost nothing you can consciously walk back into. So where does all of it go? For a long time, the easy answer seemed obvious. A baby's brain is unfinished, so a baby simply cannot make memories yet. No recording equipment, no recording. Case closed. But that answer collapses the moment you watch an actual infant. Babies remember constantly. A 6-month-old recognizes a familiar face across a room. A 1-year-old learns that pressing a button makes a light turn on and reaches for it again the next day. They remember how to find a toy hidden under a cloth. They remember which person gives the food. The machinery is clearly running. The lights are on. Someone is home. The psychologist Patricia Bauer spent years proving exactly this at Emory University. She showed that very young children form genuine memories. Real, event-based, this happened to me memories. But she found something else. Something quietly devastating. Those early memories decay far faster than adult memories do. A young child holds onto an experience for a while, then loses it at a speed that would terrify you if it happened to your own mind. The memories are not failing to form. They are forming and then dissolving, which raises a darker question. If the memories are real while they last, when exactly do they slip away? Carol Peterson, a researcher in Newfoundland, spent decades chasing that vanishing point. She interviewed children about their earliest memories, then came back years later and asked the very same children again. What she found was eerie. The young children could often describe events from before age 3, all events the older versions of themselves would later swear never existed. The door was open. Then, sometime around age 7, it began to close. The earliest memories quietly evaporated, and the children grew up certain there had been nothing there to begin with. So the forgetting is not a wall built at birth. It is a slow, silent edit that happens to all of you while you are far too young to protest. The story of your own beginning is being deleted in real time, and the only witness is a child who cannot yet hold a pen. Why would a brain do that? To understand it, you have to look at the one structure most responsible for stitching experience into lasting memory. It sits deep in the center of your skull, curled like a seahorse. It is called the hippocampus. When it is damaged in adults, the ability to form new lasting memories can vanish entirely. And in a newborn, this structure is one of the most unfinished parts of the entire brain. But here is where the story takes a genuinely strange turn. The problem may not be that the infant hippocampus is too weak. The problem may be that it is too busy. In the first years of life, the hippocampus is exploding with new cells. Neurons are being manufactured and wired in at a pace that will never be matched. Again, for decades, this looked like pure good news. More neurons, more capacity, more learning. But the neuroscientists Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn, working in Toronto, uncovered a brutal trade-off. When their lab pushed up the rate of new neuron growth in young animals, existing memories were wiped out. When they slowed that growth down, the memories survived. Read that again. The very flood of new cells that makes a baby's brain so astonishingly good at learning may be the same flood that washes its memories away. Each new neuron muscling into the circuit rewires the wiring that held the old memory in place. Imagine trying to keep a single sentence written in wet sand on a beach where the tide keeps coming in to make room for the next sentence. The growth that builds your mind is the same growth that erases its own beginning. For years, that seemed like the end of the story. The memories were gone, overwritten, lost to the architecture of your own development. And then, very recently, that conclusion cracked open. A team at Yale, led by Tristan Yates and Nick Turk-Brown, did something that had been almost impossible before. They slid awake infants into a brain scanner and watched their hippocampus while the babies looked at new images. And the infant brain lit up. When a baby's hippocampus showed a strong response to something it was seeing, that baby was far more likely to recognize the image later. The memories were not failing to record. The babies were encoding them. The seahorse was working. Sit with what that implies. If the memories are being written, but you cannot reach them as an adult, then infantile amnesia might not be a problem of recording at all. It might be a problem of retrieval. The footage may still exist somewhere in the dark archive of your brain. You have simply lost the key to the room it is stored in. Why would the key go missing? One answer is almost poetic. To remember a moment as yours, you may first need a you to attach it to. And that self does not arrive fully formed at birth. It assembles slowly, and it assembles out of language. Around the second year of life, a child begins to acquire the words to narrate experience. Researchers who study this, including Patricia Bauer and others working on autobiographical memory, have found that the children who develop richer language earlier tend to carry earlier first memories into adulthood. A memory you cannot put into a story may be a memory you cannot later find. Before you had words, your experiences had no shelf to sit on. They happened. They were even recorded. But they were filed in a language the adult you no longer speaks. There is something quietly staggering in that. The most important person you have ever been is the one you can never meet. The infant who learned your mother tongue, who decided the world was safe or unsafe, who wired the deepest patterns of who you are. That infant did all of it and then disappeared, leaving the work behind but taking the memory of doing it with them. And the work absolutely remains. This is the part that should change how you see yourself. Just because you cannot remember those years does not mean those years did not shape you. Quite the opposite. The way you respond to comfort, the way you flinch or relax around closeness, the pace at which you trust. So much of that was set down in the very chapter you can no longer read. You are walking around every day acting on instructions you wrote in a handwriting you can no longer recognize. So the forgetting is not really a failure. It may be one of the most necessary things your brain ever does. A mind that kept every flooding sensation of infancy intact, or every overwhelming color, every shapeless fear, every fragment from before you had a self to organize it, or might never be able to build a clean, coherent story of who it is. The deletion clears the ground. The forgetting is what lets the remembering begin, which brings you back to that photograph. You looked at it and saw a stranger, but you had it backwards. That child is not someone you forgot. That child is the one who built you, then stepped quietly out of the frame so that you could exist. You will never remember being held up to that camera. And yet, everything you became was decided in the years you cannot reach. There is a photograph of you that you will never remember. There never could be. because the person who lived that moment used it up entirely, spending every second of it to make the person now reading this A, and then, gift given, let it go. If this made you see yourself differently, hit like and subscribe. There's always a stranger truth waiting. You just have to look.